Hey, before we dive in, here's what you'll get from this video. By the end of this, you'll understand what truth really means, why our brains sometimes trick us into thinking something is true when it isn't, and how logic works to guide our thinking. You'll see how emotions, perception, memory, and language shape our sense of reality, and why even the smartest people can believe things that aren't accurate. You'll also learn about common mental traps, logical fallacies, and biases that fool us every day, and how to start questioning your own thoughts without feeling overwhelmed. In short, by the time we finish, you'll have the tools to think clearer, spot false claims, understand why people see the world differently, and see truth not as a fixed destination, but as a direction we can all explore together. You ever notice how people argue for hours, and still everyone walks away thinking they're right? Crazy, huh? We like to talk about truth like it's some shiny, obvious thing, but half the time, we're not even sure what true really means. And logic, that thing philosophers obsess over, well, it doesn't make things simple either. It's supposed to be a guide, but it can also be confusing, tricky, even humbling. So let's take a long journey today. Let's ask, what is truth? How do we know something is true? And how does logic help us find it? Or maybe trick us into thinking we found it. Way back, before smartphones, before the internet, there was Aristotle. He's like the OG master of thinking clearly. He said, if something is true, it can't also be false. Simple, right? You can't be alive and dead at the same time. But life isn't simple. Quantum physics shows particles can exist in multiple states at once. And emotions? You can love someone and hate them at the same time. That's human. Maybe Aristotle's rules were just the starting point, a way to keep our minds from completely falling apart. Let's talk about perception. When we say something is true, we usually mean it matches reality. But here's the catch. Our reality isn't always reliable. Imagine you say, the sun is setting. Sounds true, right? But technically, it's false. The sun doesn't move, the earth does. Yet every evening, it looks like the sun is moving. Our brains take shortcuts to understand the world. Sometimes, truth isn't logic, it's experience, and experience can lie. Now, Aristotle gave us three main laws. First, the law of identity. A thing is itself. Second, the law of non-contradiction. Something can't be both A and not A at the same time. Third, the law of excluded middle. Something is either true or false. No in between. Sounds simple, but humans? We break these rules constantly. We say one thing, feel another, believe a third. Walking contradictions. That's life. Logic gives structure, but emotion gives meaning. Let's dive into the traps our minds fall into, logical fallacies. These are sneaky, and we all do it. You're wrong because you're stupid. Ad hominem. It must be true because my teacher said so. Appeal to authority. You're either with me or against me. False dilemma. We see these everywhere. Politics, social media, family dinners. And every time we fall for them, we choose comfort over truth. But thinking critically isn't just about spotting fallacies. It's about noticing bias. Everyone has biases, even the smartest, most logical people. Confirmation bias, for example. We tend to notice information that confirms what we already believe and ignore the rest. Availability bias. We judge how likely something is based on examples that are easiest to remember. Ever notice how a shocking news story seems more common than it really is? That's bias. We live in a world of biases, and truth hides behind them. Now, let's get philosophical. What if truth isn't just facts, or reality, or logic? What if truth is also meaning? A compass points north, but you still choose where to go. Science, for example, is an attempt to map reality, but even science changes. Newton gave us the laws of motion. Then Einstein came along and said, not quite. And now we have quantum mechanics bending what we thought was possible. Truth in science isn't fixed. It evolves. Memory is another trickster. Think you remember yesterday accurately? You don't. Studies show memory is reconstructed every time you recall it. Slightly altered, slightly reshaped. Your truth about what happened yesterday might not match reality, and yet you feel certain. That certainty feels like truth, but it's not always. Language complicates things too. Words are tools for sharing truth, but they're messy. Freedom, justice, love, everyone interprets them differently. Even if two people agree on the words, they might be imagining completely different realities. This is why debates go in circles. It's not stubbornness, it's the limits of communication. Let's bring in stories. Imagine two friends witnessing the same event. One says, "It was amazing." The other says, "It was terrible." Who's right? Both. Both are seeing the same reality, but their interpretation, their experience, their emotions color the truth. That's human truth. Personal, subjective, real. Now let's mix in psychology. Humans crave patterns. We want cause and effect. We want stories that make sense. Sometimes, our brains invent connections that aren't there. Conspiracy theories, myths, urban legends. They feel true because they satisfy our mental patterns, even if they're false. And that's fascinating. Our need for truth is as strong as our need for comfort. Here's a fun twist. Imagine AI or a robot trying to figure out truth. It would follow logic perfectly, record every fact, never forget. But it wouldn't care. That's the human touch. We need meaning. Truth alone doesn't guide us. We use it to live, to decide, to act. Logic without purpose is cold. Ethics and morality are another layer. Sometimes what is logical isn't what feels right. Imagine saving one person to save 10, the classic trolley problem. Logic can calculate outcomes, but the heart struggles. Truth is entangled with morality, and morality with perception. There's rarely a purely logical answer. That's the beauty and the frustration of being human. And let's be honest, the world bombards us with information constantly. Social media, news, friends, opinions. How do we separate fact from fiction? How do we spot truth in the noise? Critical thinking isn't a choice anymore. It's survival. And it's tiring because logic is patient, but humans aren't always. Let's pause and think about history. Wars, politics, revolutions. They often start with stories. Not always lies, but narratives shaped to convince. People believe what feels true, not what's objectively true. Truth is often the first casualty in human affairs. And that's why learning logic, questioning claims, and seeking evidence matters so much. Here's a challenge. Next time you hear something shocking or exciting, pause. Ask, how do I know this? What's the evidence? Could I be wrong? These small questions build habits of truth, and they make your mind stronger, more flexible, more awake. Ultimately, truth and logic are guides. They're compasses, maps, tools. But humans, we add meaning, emotion, context, perspective. That's what makes life messy, complicated, and beautiful. Be curious, question everything, even your own thoughts. Seek truth, but accept it's often incomplete. Embrace logic, but don't forget your humanity. Truth doesn't belong to anyone. It's something we find together. And maybe the closest we'll ever get is admitting we don't fully know it yet. Truth isn't what you believe. It's what survives when belief fades.